people in our state who need it, but only if backed by a government who believes that people like my brother are worth saving and worth helping. And that's why I'm here. My name is Wendy Goditis, and I'm the Democratic nominee for delegate in Virginia, House District 10.
Wendy Goditis won that seat last night. She was up against a Republican incumbent who'd been in the seat for 3 terms already, and he was not perceived as in danger. He won re-election in the last election by 25 points. But last night, Wendy Goditis beat him. First-time candidate. By the way, just for reference sake, here's Wendy Goditis at the Women's March last year. And here's Jennifer Carroll Foy.
Jennifer Carroll Foy loves a challenge. She was one of the first African-American women at VMI, first in her family to graduate. Assembly.
And I want to help usher in this new change where people understand that women are multifaceted, multidimensional, and we can do all things that we focus and put our minds to.
She and her husband spent every night of the campaign in the NICU with their premature twins, who she did not know she was pregnant with until 3 weeks after she declared she was running for the first time she's ever run for anything in her life. She was consigned to bed rest for the primary, so her husband had to take off work and show up for her that day at the polls. Jennifer Carroll Foy, last night, won that race. First-time candidate. After Hillary Clinton lost the presidential election to Donald Trump last year, young people who had worked on the Clinton campaign started a simple group with a simple slogan. It's called Run for Something, to get young progressive people who'd never run for anything before to run for something. It's easy to remember the mission, right? The idea was to run for something at the local level or at the state level. Start as small as you feel you need to. They supported 10 candidates last night for the Virginia House. 6 of them won. After Trump was elected last year, young Democratic congressional staffers started a group, or really a concept called Indivisible, to get people to organize locally in their home districts, to pressure their own locally elected officials to say no to the Trump agenda. There are nearly 200 indivisible groups in Virginia alone. One of those indivisible groups was started by Wendy Goditis. Now she's just been elected to a seat that may result in Virginia turning its legislature blue. After the presidential election last year, Bernie Sanders supporters started Our Revolution to promote progressive candidates in races at every level. Jennifer Carroll Foy is one of their candidates who they have bragging rights about electing today, as is Elizabeth Guzman, one of the pioneering Latinas who took an incumbent Republican seat in the Virginia legislature last night as well. And I just mentioned those few groups that have sprung up since the election last year in this remarkable year that we've had. I mentioned those handful of groups just because those are the ones off the top of my head, but there are a gazillion of them. And this whole idea of democratic organizing over the past year hasn't been like a theoretical exercise. This has not been political science. The democratic year of organizing that we've just had has resulted in a lot of individual Americans changing their lives and becoming political actors in ways they never had before. And it turns out it can be a big life-upending deal for Americans to get moved not just from citizen to voter and voter to marcher and marcher to activist, but from activist to candidate. And sometimes after you declare, you find out you're pregnant and you have premature twins. And sometimes right after you declare, you lose your brother to mental illness and PTSD. But you're running now, so that's your life now. And we'll add one last point here in terms of how this last year has changed us as a country and has changed us as political animals. On the Republican side, the Republicans obviously, I mean, just don't make bones about it, right? The best way to say this is, the Republicans have the Trump issue to deal with as the alpha and the omega of their 2017 problems. We're going to be talking tonight about some of the latest sworn testimony that has just emerged in the scandal that increasingly appears to be subsuming this presidency. We're going to be talking about the latest member of the Trump administration to receive subpoenas from law enforcement. But while the Republicans are dealing with that very unusual situation, for the Democrats, right, last night is the first manifestation we've seen of how much Democrats have been organizing, Democrats and progressives have been organizing over the past year to run candidates, to recruit candidates, to make people think of themselves in our political system differently than they used to make people think of themselves as political actors and not just political observers, to recruit huge new crops of new candidates and new activists, to build new support for new candidates in myriad grassroots ways. And to win elections because of it. We saw that last night in spades. But last night also showed why it is that the last Democratic president, Barack Obama, and his former Attorney General, Eric Holder, have decided to spend the last year working on something very different. What they've been working on the last year is this obscure seeming thing, redistricting, right? Why did they choose that to work on in the first year of the Trump era? Well, just look at Virginia. There are 11 congressional seats in Virginia. Last November 2016, a year ago tonight, right? There were roughly equal numbers of votes cast by Virginians for Democratic congressional candidates and Republican congressional candidates. In terms of congressional races, this night a year ago, about 3.7 million votes were cast in Virginia. And it was almost even. Democrats got a few more. Democrats got about 16,000 more votes for congressional candidates than Republicans did. But even despite that even vote in 2016, a vote which actually favored Democrats a little bit, even so, of the 11 congressional seats in Virginia, Republicans took 7 of the 11. The votes were even, but Republicans got all the seats. And that's because of redistricting, gerrymandering, right? To tilt the playing field toward Republicans, even when Democrats get more votes. Right, that was last year. Last night, Democrats ran the table in Virginia beyond their wildest dreams. If you look at the votes cast for the state legislature last night in Virginia, we're still looking for final totals, but from our estimates right now with what we've got, about 54% of the votes last night were cast for Democrats in the legislature versus about 44% for Republicans. That's based on the vote totals we've got so far. But even with that Democratic advantage, that Democratic 10-point advantage in the number of votes cast last night for the legislature, that doesn't necessarily translate to the Democrats taking over the legislature. And that's because Republicans redistricted it. They redistricted the legislature. They gerrymandered those districts so that even when Democrats win in a landslide, like they did last night, Republicans' worst nightmare, Democrats did better than they ever imagined. Even on a night like last night, Republicans maybe still hold on to control. Maybe. We don't know yet. Got to see about the recounts. This is how well they gerrymandered it in Virginia. When it's even, Republicans win by a lot. When Democrats get more votes, Republicans still win. When Democrats get tons more votes, Republicans still win. The only way Democrats can maybe win is to absolutely, completely demolish the Republicans like they did last night, and then still it's a maybe as to whether or not Democrats are allowed to get control. Wait for the recounts. Lots of Democrats have done lots of things over this past year to organize and to try to win, and their results last night were very impressive. But President Obama and Eric Holder started working on this boring redistricting thing to try to get Democrats to win legislatures and to win governor's races, to undo the Republican gerrymandering. And last night, for all those Democratic victories, last night is a perfect example of why that's time well spent.
This is MSNBC Breaking News. I'm Melissa Rayberger in New York. President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping just spoke in Beijing, Mr. Trump's third stop on his 12-day trip to Asia. The president is hailing his personal relationship with his Chinese counterpart and says the two will work together to solve not only their mutual problems, but also, quote, world problems and problems of great danger and security. He, of course, is talking about North Korea, as well as concerns over America's trade relationship with China. Let's get more from NBC News senior national correspondent Chris Jansing, who is traveling with the president. Chris?
Hey, Melissa, well, what a difference a year makes. That's when the president was elected. Much of the talk then was about the horrible, what he called the horrible trade imbalance, the horrible policies, and he wanted changes with trade with China. But today he basically said to President Xi, it's not your fault. Bad deals were made by previous administrations, and he pledged moving forward to make changes that will right what he considers to be those embarrassing trade imbalances. But the big story here, of course, is North Korea. What is China willing to do with their influence, being the biggest trading partner of North Korea, to address the nuclear situation? Just a short time ago, joint statements by the two presidents. Take a listen to what President Trump had to say on North Korea.
We agreed not to replicate failed approaches of the past, and there were many. We agreed on the need to fully implement all UN Security Council resolutions on North Korea and to increase economic pressure until North Korea abandons its reckless and dangerous path. All responsible nations must join together to stop arming and financing and even trading with the murderous North Korean regime.
Well, by the end of this trip, we will hear something specific because the White House has said President Trump will make a decision on whether to officially designate North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. Standing side by side with President Xi, who rules with authoritarianism, he said that both countries would advocate for reform and rule of law, and in something that will make a lot of human rights activists very uncomfortable. He said to Xi, you're a very special man. The two have formed what some people have called a kind of bromance. Last night, when the president arrived with the First Lady, he said President Xi nicely offered to only do a 20 or 25-minute dinner, and it went on for 2 hours. So the two men have been in intense conversations. We'll see how many deliverables they are. Tonight, a lot of pomp and circumstance with a state dinner with the two first couples. Melissa?
Chris Jansing, thank you. I'm Melissa Rayberger in New York. We now return you to the Rachel Maddow Show.
Okay, here's some news that is not getting a lot of attention, but I think it's potentially a huge deal. This summer, the same day the White House senior strategist Steve Bannon resigned from the White House, and that took up all the oxygen in the room, on that same day, this guy also resigned from the White House. His name is Carl Icahn, and he had been serving as a special advisor to the president for regulatory reform. He'd been serving there since the transition. Carl Icahn was an advisor to the president on regulations. And around the time that he got that White House advisor gig, Carl Icahn also started effectively putting bets in the markets on one of the issues that he was advising the president on. In August, Patrick Radden Keefe reported for the New Yorker magazine on the kinds of bets that Carl Icahn was making in the markets and how his advice to the White House could conceivably earn him hundreds of millions of dollars if the White House took that advice and then those bets accordingly paid off for his businesses. That obviously is a crime. There's a federal statute that makes it illegal for executive branch employees to work on any matter in which they may have a direct financial interest, which Carl Icahn clearly did. So that reporting on Carl Icahn's business behavior while serving in the White House, that was a real problem, potentially both for him and for the White House. And that Friday night this summer in August, I remember, the New Yorker posted that piece by Patrick Radden Keefe, and basically at the same moment, like minutes before the New Yorker posted that piece, on the same day that Steve Bannon was resigning, and so nobody noticed, Carl Icahn quit. And then immediately, both he and the White House started to insist that actually there's nothing to quit. Actually, he'd never had that job at all. That job that he just quit, he never had that. the White House literally started to say that Carl Icahn had never had a formal appointment or title, even though they had formally announced his appointment and his title. They started saying that Carl Icahn was just a private citizen. Now, at the time, the former director of the Office of Government Ethics, Walter Shaub, started sending out a series of emergency flare tweets calling on the Justice Department to investigate this alleged criminal behavior on the part of the president's advisor. The New York Attorney General's office later told us that the Carl Icahn matter was, quote, on their radar. And that's where we left things in August, seeing Carl Icahn quit and sensing that law enforcement authorities were following behind him very closely out the door. Since then, we've continued to call the New York Attorney General's office to talk about this matter. They've only just told us that it's still on their radar. We've called Carl Icahn's office enough to make me start to worry that we're being rude, but we've had no formal response from them. It's been almost 12 weeks now since Carl Icahn stepped down, and we haven't heard anything more formal about whether or not law enforcement authorities were chasing him down on this matter, because we hadn't heard anything until now. Started to get some rumblings on Wednesday of last week when Reuters reported that Carl Icahn's oil refining company had significantly unwound a large short position in the U.S. biofuel credit market. What they mean there is that Carl Icahn dumped out of that bet. He dumped more than half his financial stake in this matter that he had been betting on while advising the White House on that same matter. So remember, Carl Icahn stepped down in August. Why'd you then dump out of those bets, Mr. Icahn? We learned about that on Wednesday. Then on Friday, Icahn Enterprises filed a quarterly report with the SEC, and way down on page 59 of their quarterly report, under item 5, which is headlined Other Information, they revealed something else going on here that is as serious as a heart attack. They revealed that the federal prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, quote, recently contacted Icahn Enterprises seeking production of information pertaining to our and Mr. Icahn's activities relating to the renewable fuel standard and Mr. Icahn's role as an advisor to the president. The company told regulators, quote, we are cooperating. So that SEC filing, that other information note on page 59 of the quarterly filing went sort of under the radar until today when Bloomberg News broke the news of federal investigators issuing subpoenas for Carl Icahn and his company. Icahn Enterprises wants you to know that the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York has not made any claims or allegations against us or Mr. Icahn, so there's that. But the Southern District of New York now has subpoenaed the heck out of Carl Icahn, Trump's special advisor on regulatory affairs. And what they are demanding information about is what was Carl Icahn doing in the markets while he was advising the president on matters that could affect the price of his behavior in the markets. The Carl Icahn story is the most banana republic corruption story we have in the Trump administration. And it's now involving subpoenas and a federal prosecutor's office. And I can't say we didn't see it coming. Watch this space.
Each year, Sarah climbs 58,070 steps. That's the height of Mount Everest. Because each day she chooses to take the stairs, at work, at home, even on the escalator. That can be hard on her lower body. So now she does it with Dr. Scholl's orthotics, clinically proven to relieve and prevent foot, knee, or lower back pain by reducing the shock and stress that travel up her body with every step she takes. So keep on climbing, Sarah. You're killing it. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
Same hotel, same price? No! There's a bunch of different prices out there all over the internet. Trivago instantly compares them to find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel Trivago.
Our Thanksgivings used to be small. Now look at us. It amazes me what we share and what will forever connect us.
This Thanksgiving, celebrate your family with 23andMe.com.
He's brought us to the brink of nuclear war, accused of obstructing justice at the FBI and of violating the Constitution by taking money from foreign governments and threatening to shut down news organizations that report the truth. If that isn't a case for impeaching and removing a dangerous president, then what has our government become? I'm Tom Steyer, and like you, I'm a citizen who knows it's up to us to do something. It's why I'm funding this effort to raise our voices together and demand that elected officials take a stand on impeachment. A Republican Congress once impeached a president for far less. Yet today, people in Congress and his own administration know that this president is a clear and present danger, who's mentally unstable and armed with nuclear weapons. And they do nothing. Join us and tell your member of Congress that they have a moral responsibility to stop doing what's political and start doing what's right. Our country depends on it.
There's a denture adhesive that holds strong until evening. Fixodent Plus adhesives. Just one application gives you superior hold, even at the end of the day. Fixodent. Strong, more like natural teeth.
Now you can have everything. One of America's safest crossovers, well equipped for under $24,000. Get $3,000 cash back and make no payments for 90 days or 0% for 84 months.
The local wine shop, a place where people go to get confused, frustrated, and end up picking pretty labels instead of great wine. Well, now there's a better way. At TastingRoom.com, America's #1 personalized wine club. Every bottle is selected based on your personal wine profile, and fewer than 1 in 50 wines makes it through our rigorous selection process. We're so sure that you'll love our wines that every bottle is backed by our total satisfaction guarantee. The Huffington Post calls Tasting Room the first wine club to get it right. Get amazing wines at incredible prices, selected just for you, delivered right to you. Go to TastingRoom.com and receive your exclusive tasting kit of world-class wines. Once you get your kit, taste, rate, and build your personal profile one sip at a time. It's a no-brainer. Great wine without the guesswork, backed by our total satisfaction guarantee. Go to TastingRoom.com, enter promo code BLEND6, and get your exclusive tasting kit, a $40 value for just $6.95. TastingRoom.com, code BLEND6. TastingRoom.com. Taste, rate, enjoy.
This is a man named William Binney. He used to work for the National Security Agency back in the day. He left that job 17 years ago. He's kept very busy, though. Here he is on Russian state-sponsored TV, RT. This is him less than a year ago, explicating his theory that the whole idea that Russia hacked anybody's emails as part of the 2016 election, he expounds the theory that that is a hoax. He says the hack of the Democratic National Committee was actually an inside job. The DNC hacked itself to make itself lose. Here's Bill Binney, not on Russian television, but on InfoWars with host Alex Jones, the guy who says, among other things, that the Sandy Hook shooting was a false flag operation with child actors, and that the government is turning us all gay with chemicals in our juice boxes. On the Alex Jones show, Bill Binney laid out his case that the DNC didn't just hack itself. Actually, what happened was that the DNC was hacked by the intelligence community itself to make Donald Trump look bad. And what? No, that doesn't make sense, but it's a very Baroque sort of plot if you think about it. Or if you don't think about it, you just let it wash over you. Also, he insists that the NSA is working to establish a world government, of course. So Bill Binney. Last month, Bill Binney was personally interviewed one-on-one for an hour by the director of the CIA. Because the director of the CIA apparently felt that Bill Binney's theories, which he has expounded upon on RT and InfoWars, the director of the CIA felt that Bill Binney's theories merit the attention of the head of America's premier spy agency for an hour, one-on-one. Why would he do that? Well, according to Bill Binney, the CIA director, Mike Pompeo, called him in for this meeting. This was first reported by The Intercept. It's now been confirmed by NBC News. And Bill Binney tells NBC News that Mike Pompeo told him, he called him up, asked him to come into Langley for his meeting, quote, at the urging of President Trump. So President Trump has asked the CIA director to take that meeting with Bill Binney. If only Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo had, like, intelligence resources, some sort of intelligence community they could call on to gather factual evidence about whether Russia hacked the DNC. Guess they don't, so instead they just get the guy from RT and InfoWars. Why not? He probably knows better than anyone. This is a strange story that has broken over the last couple of days, but it's also potentially quite a serious story, particularly for the Robert Mueller special counsel investigation. And I'll tell you why that is next.
voluntary manslaughter. It's a good deal.
It's an enema of sunshine.
Critics agree. Denzel Washington gives one of the finest performances of his career.
Where's the court for white folks?
Variety calls him a character you won't soon forget.
These are dangerous people. I got you anytime I want. I'm not walking away.
Vanity Fair declares Denzel Washington shines.
You're inspiring.
Wow, you're insane.
Denzel Washington is Roman J. Israel Esquire. Everywhere Thanksgiving. Rated PG-13.
You're scruff, unruly, untamable. Now, everything you know about grooming is about to change. Introducing Microtouch Solo, the new hyper-advanced smart razor that trims, shaves, and edges, all with the same blade. Dual-sided German stainless steel blades let you shave up or down with micro-precision. And look, snap on the guide to perfectly trim beards. Snap it off to precision-edge sideburns. And it's safe to the touch, so it's even perfect on body hair. Get your all-new Microtouch Solo now, complete with stainless steel blade, pivoting head, built-in high-intensity spotlight, plus 3 custom guides, all for just $24.99. Call 1-800-828-0762 or go to microtouchsolo.com. Order now, and we'll include an additional German stainless steel head, free. The personalized precision grooming solution from Microtouch.
Amidst a world of brilliant turquoise, there's an exotic new place in the Bahamas where green holes meet blue holes, where every carefree pleasure is absolutely free, where time is forgotten and love is remembered. Sandals Emerald Bay, the ultimate golf and spa resort in Great Exuma, Bahamas. Close to home, even closer to heaven. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
If you have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, isn't it time to let the real you shine through? Maybe it's time for Otezla, Apremilast. Otezla is not an injection or a cream. It's a pill that treats plaque psoriasis differently. With Otezla, 75% clearer skin is achievable after just 4 months, with reduced redness, thickness, and scaliness of plaques. And the Otezla prescribing information has no requirement for routine lab monitoring. Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. Otezla may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Tell your doctor if these occur. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression. Tell your doctor if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts, or if these feelings develop. Some people taking Otezla reported weight loss. Your doctor should monitor your weight and may stop treatment. Other side effects include upper respiratory tract infection and headache. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take and if you're pregnant or planning to be. Ask your dermatologist about Otezla today. Otezla, show more of you.
Last month, CIA Director Mike Pompeo told a national security summit that the U.S. intelligence community's assessment is that the Russian interference in the election last year didn't affect the outcome of the election. That is not the U.S. intelligence community's assessment of what happened last year. The intelligence community, in fact, made no assessment on that point whatsoever. They didn't check. The CIA had to rescind Director Mike Pompeo's remarks after he made them. That incident followed the Washington Post scoop this summer that Mike Pompeo has reorganized the CIA internally so that one part of the agency that didn't used to report to the director now reports directly to him. It's the CIA's Counterintelligence Mission Center. That, incidentally, is the part of the CIA that turned up evidence of Trump campaign officials making contacts with Russian officials. That's the part of the CIA that produced intelligence information which helped lead to the whole Russia investigation in the first place. That part of the CIA now has been reorganized internally so that it has to report directly to Mike Pompeo. Former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuade recently made a public argument that sometimes wakes me up in the middle of the night. It was titled, "Mike Pompeo Could Stop Robert Mueller in His Tracks." She argued that the CIA director could potentially deny the Robert Mueller special counsel investigation, could deny them access to classified intelligence that the special counsel might need to make his case. She said, as a former federal prosecutor who worked on terrorism cases, there were a number of times in her prosecutorial career where she would have to go to the CIA for permission to use classified intelligence in a case. It's the CIA's call whether or not they give it to you. And if you can't make your case without that intelligence, you don't have a case. Well, now we have this reporting that in addition to the other things that Mike Pompeo has done this year since the Russia scandal has broken wide open, the president recently ordered his CIA director, Mike Pompeo, to take a one-on-one hour-long meeting with a guy who goes on Russian media peddling conspiracy theories about the Russian attack on the election that contradict everything Pompeo's own agency has concluded. The president directed the CIA director to do that, and the CIA director took the meeting, you know, to get the real facts. I know this is as weird as it seems. My question is whether this is potentially not just weird, but dangerous. Joining us now is Ned Price. He spent over a decade at the CIA. He was a spokesman and senior director at the National Security Council under President Obama. Mr. Price, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel.
I laid out a few things about Mike Pompeo that have appeared in the news in recent months. His misstatements about Russia's interference, definitely not affecting the outcome of the election, this reorganization that he made at the CIA in terms of who has to report to him directly, and now this meeting that he took with Bill Binney, a guy who has spun conspiracy theories, including on Russian
colleagues, individuals who are still on the inside, that they bother them too. Look, the fact of the matter is that ever since the CIA was founded in 1947, there's been an understanding that intelligence and politics don't mix, that CIA needs space to provide policymakers with the sort of unbiased, unvarnished intelligence analysis that they need and deserve. That's why it's been so troubling to see President Trump time and again put his finger on the scale, on the intelligence scale, whether it was as the Republican nominee casting aside the intelligence community's high confidence assessment that Russia was actually behind this, or in this case, asking Mike Pompeo to meet with Bill Binney at CIA headquarters. That was an implicit signal that Donald Trump himself believes in this crazy theory. And to me, Rachel, the most proximate analogy I've been able to think of is if President George W. Bush had asked then Director of Central Intelligence George Tenet to meet with a 9/11 truther in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. That would be on the same scale as what we've just seen.
Barbara McQuaid has made the case that this, if the CIA director is sort of a worst-case scenario thing, if all these things that he has done that have emerged about his leadership at the CIA point in the worst possible direction in terms of his politicizing intelligence, that it's possible that he could interfere with law enforcement looking into justice issues in the Russia scandal, because he could conceivably block intelligence from being used by prosecutors to make their various legal cases as more and more people get indicted. Does that seem far-fetched to you, or is that something that the CIA could do if it chose to under leadership that had that inclination?
Not far-fetched at all. It's all too real. Look, at its heart, what Mueller is involved in is a counterintelligence investigation. And the CIA is our preeminent espionage agency collecting foreign intelligence, some of which is going to be of a counterintelligence flavor. So there are really two ways that CIA Director Pompeo could impede this investigation. One is when it comes to what's already in CIA's holdings. He could deny requests on the part of Mueller's team to hand over intelligence that CIA has collected over the past couple years, ever since these so-called Russian active measures have gone into effect. Now, the good news is that there was a pretty comprehensive intelligence assessment done at the beginning of this year, and in the production of that, intelligence was analyzed and the report was produced, a public version of which was released on January 6th. To me, the more concerning element of this is the prospective information, the information that CIA could come into possession of in the coming weeks, months, or even years if this drags on. Now that Mike Pompeo is the person to whom the head of the Counterintelligence Mission Center reports directly, there's a concern, including a concern among current CIA officers, that Mike Pompeo could take that information and run to the White House, not in a way to speak truth to power, but in a way to muffle that information, to make sure that it never sees the light of day, and to make sure especially that it never sees the hands of Mueller's prosecutors.
which means that Mueller wouldn't even know to ask for it to be declassified for use in a court setting if he didn't know it existed. Ned Price, veteran of the CIA and the National Security Council, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We've got a lot more to get to this busy night. Stay with us.
Turning in the grain again, the bells began to chime. Time, she says, there's no turning back.
You can pass down a Subaru Forester. She's all yours. But you get to keep the memories.
Love. It's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Coaching means making tough choices.
Jim, you're in.
But when you have high blood pressure and need cold medicine that works fast, the choice is simple. Coricidin HBP is the #1 brand that gives powerful cold symptom relief without raising your blood pressure. Coricidin HBP.
Hey everyone, I'm Taylor.
I'm Catherine. I'm Courtney.
Looking for a real relationship?
I'm on Match. Find that real match, that real good person.
I am looking to explore. Not a game player. I like nice guys. So if you're out there, come find me.
Check out Match right now for free.
We'll make this easy on you. Square makes it easy for everyone to accept credit cards like this, and like this. It's easy to accept every major credit card with no surprise fees. And it's easy to get deposits in your account as soon as the next business day. Or you can get your money instantly. That's easy too. Square has easy-to-read sales reports. Sign up is free, so that's easy. And your first card reader is free too. It couldn't be any easier. Get started free at square.com.
This is what it's all about, Jamie. Helping small businesses. Damage a vehicle? We got you covered. Property damage? That's what general liability's for. What? Injured employee?
Ow.
Workers' comp helps you pay for a replacement.
What's happening?
This is Carla. How's it going? And if anything comes up, our experts are standing by. Boo.
What's the law on what you can and cannot say on a billboard?
I'd do anything to catch your daughter's killer. I don't think those billboards is very fair.
The police is too busy eating Krispy Kremes to solve actual crime.
What's the matter with you saying that stuff on TV?
Go, girl.
There's a lot of good friends of the sheriff. Hey, you didn't drill a little hole in the dentist today, did you?
Of course not.
3 billboards. Rated R.
I won this 55-inch TV for less than $30 on DealDash.com.
I got this $1,200 computer for $100.71.
These aren't actors, they're real people who got real savings at DealDash.com, the fair and honest bidding site. At DealDash.com, you can save up to 99%, but hurry, everything must go.
And shipping is always free.
Visit DealDash.com and start bidding today.
So you like to cook. And you're curious about meal kits. But don't know where to start. All you have to do is... Oh, you're already done. With Home Chef, get fresh ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes delivered weekly for delicious meals in about 30 minutes. Visit homechef.com for $30 off your first order.
I have a new idea for you. On the 1-year anniversary of last year's presidential election, after a night last night when the Democrats ran the table in off-year elections in Virginia and across the country, if you are looking for a little steadiness, if you are looking for a little measure of perspective, if you're looking for inspiration when it comes to your beloved country in this era, I commend to you Dan Rather's moving, short, resonant new book, which has just come out. It's called What Unites Us, Reflections on Patriotism. And the great Dan Rather joins us now, so I can congratulate him on the book. Mr. Rather, it is very nice to see you. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Rachel. Thank you very much.
Dan, I want to ask you what you thought. We actually thought we were going to have you on the air last night, which was the first night that your book launched, and then things went crazy in terms of breaking news. What were you thinking last night watching that split screen of the president in South Korea and watching the Democrats roll things up at home here in terms of last night's elections. What do you make of this moment we're in right now?
Well, obviously, they're two of the biggest headlines of the week so far. The president's language, for the most part, in his visit to South Korea and moving on to China, has been more muted than his language before. Now, he said some terrible things about North Korea, accurate things, but, he's handled himself very well. I noted, and I think I mentioned to you, Rachel, that he delivered the speech after getting off to a shaky start pretty well, the one in South Korea. But it's hard to make out what the policy is. From time to time, he makes these threats to North Korea. But I think if you look at the South Korean visit and then moving on to China, the following things are pretty obvious. Number one, we've said it before, but it bears repeating, that China is the key. If there's going to be any real progress toward getting the North Koreans to at least slow their nuclear development, the Chinese have got to be a major player, and I think that's one thing that's come clear from this. The other is that the president has been, at least in his rhetoric, zigzagging some on North Korean policy. But having said all that, it would be a mistake not to recognize, because it's so, that we're probably closer to an outright war with North Korea than we have been in a very, very long time. Now, as for domestic policies and politics, and the vote last night, clearly a sweep, nearly a sweep for the Democrats. Their best night since when Obama's election, I guess, in 2012. However, what I noticed that the Democrats were celebrating, naturally they'd be celebrating because in some ways they were surprised by the margin that they won in some races. And the message was clearly a repudiation of the tone, if not indeed the actual substance, of the Trump presidency. And, part of what I'm trying to write in What Unites Us, the book, was, we need to light the embers of hope and have some optimism. And I find at least some bit of that in these election returns. It's a reminder that votes count. And in the end, you can march, you can protest, you can say you're part of the resistance, but the biggest thing you can do is organize and get out the vote. The Democrats did that very well this time. And there's no other analysis available other than the one that will make many Republicans up for re-election next year make their fingernails sweat, these returns from last night. But it's a little early for the Democrats to be moonwalking in the end zone. They've made a start, but it's going to take a while to reverse the trend that started with Trump's election.
Dan Rather's new book is called What Unites Us? Reflections on Patriotism. Dan, I want to thank you in particular for your reflections on the idea of steadiness. That has been helpful to me in terms of thinking about our politics right now, not just as a pendulum swinging back and forth, but us being steady as a country. You're an inspiration, sir. Congratulations on this good book. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much, Rachel.
Nice to see you. All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Doesn't just break.
Deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history.
No gas, no communications.
Splinters in different directions.
As Donald Trump seeks to tighten the vice on North Korea,
Takes unexpected twists and turns.
A fierce backlash mounting from those on the left and the right.
And our trusted NBC News journalists will guide you through every one.
President Trump sparking controversy once again.
So wherever the story goes,
how is this White House going to answer this question tomorrow?
You'll be right there with it.
Can you fit in there?
I got this.
So that's the new man, huh?
Yep.
Well, it's getting a little close to my ride.
Wow, that's how you make a first impression. They're gonna love you.
That's Ford, America's best-selling brand. Hurry in for 0% financing for 72 months across a full lineup of Ford cars, trucks, and SUVs. And just announced, get 0% APR for 72 months plus $1,000 cash back. Take advantage of these exclusive holiday offers during the Ford year-end sales event.
Patients frequently come to me with a pretty personal question. Is there any way to truly eliminate embarrassing bad breath and prevent it from returning? That's when I tell them about Smart Mouth. Beating bad breath means neutralizing the real source of bad breath, sulfur gas. Activated Smart Mouth eliminates existing sulfur gas and blocks the production of new sulfur gas. No sulfur gas, no bad breath.
Smart Mouth. Never have bad breath.
Occasional constipation can be a pretty tough customer.
Colace is the #1 doctor-recommended stool softener brand. It's been gently softening up hard cases for over 60 years. Colace. Feel the difference a little softness can make.
We wanted to sell our home and at the best price, and we needed a real estate agent who could get that done. We're so glad we found HomeLight. HomeLight ranks over 1 million agents based on their actual track record. They crunch the numbers to figure out who is best in your neighborhood, who can sell your home for the most money. HomeLight matched us with Alex. He sold our home in only 2 days for $40,000 over asking. When it's time to sell, the place to go is HomeLight.com.
Whatever you're doing to stay healthy, you might be missing something. Your eyes. That's why there's Ocuvite. It helps replenish nutrients your eyes can lose as you age. Nourish your eyes to help keep them healthy. Ocuvite. Be good to your eyes.
Hey, at the top of the show, I talked about the New Jersey County Councilor who posted this response to the big women's march in January. This is what he posted. Will the women's protest be over in time for them to cook dinner? That New Jersey politician who posted that, last night he lost his seat to a rookie Democratic woman, 32-year-old woman, Ashley Bennett, who'd never run for anything before, but who found inspiration in her local public officials. Tonight on The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell, he is going to be speaking with, among other people, that woman, Ashley Bennett. I'm telling you, for real, he's got her. That does it for us tonight. See you again tomorrow. Now it's time for you to watch The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell. Good evening, Lawrence.
Good evening, Rachel. And I just rushed over here from Barnes & Noble on the Upper West Side, where I was signing some books tonight for my new book.
Oh, good.
And guess who was sitting in the front row?
I don't know.
The famous Judy, who you have made famous.
The lady from the diner?
Judy from your diner. There she is. There she is. There's the picture. There's the full screen picture of Judy from the diner at Barnes & Noble tonight. She had told you this wild idea she has about maybe I should run for president. And I told her that I would very, very happily accept the vice presidential nomination on the Maddo O'Donnell ticket.
Oh, I thought you were going to say on the Judy and O'Donnell ticket.
That Maddo O'Donnell ticket. I really like that vice presidential job. I really like that. You know,
well, Judy has very good taste in diners, and she has very good taste in late night hosts. And I think she knows who ought to run for president, Lawrence.
And Judy Skillman, now New York's most famous political strategist.
Well done, my friend.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.
Well, Republicans woke up this morning clinging to the wreckage of Trumpism. And now Republicans cannot honestly see any success in their future that involves Donald Trump, but they're still trying to pretend that there is a future with Donald Trump.
What happened last night all across the country is tired of this.
You could smell a wave coming. There was a coalition of the decent in this country that rose up yesterday.
The rejection of Donald Trump's fear and divisiveness.
The margins of these victories, the turnout, the energy are astonishing.
I think it's important for Republicans to self-reflect.
Bing, bing, bong, bong.
It doesn't change my reading of the current moment. I think it simply means we got to deliver.
What last night signaled was if you keep going on this path, you will be annihilated.
This was a big deal.
And really gratifying that our democracy still works.
Are you worried about next year?
No. I like a good fight.
Our Republican friends better look out.
Last night we saw democracy in action. Last year we saw the Electoral College in action. The Electoral College is not democracy. Last night the candidates with the most votes won their elections. That is democracy. And the best way to... Last night, the candidates with the most votes won their elections. The word Republican beside your name in many cases meant that voters decided that you were too close to Donald Trump just by being in the same party with him. And so Republicans in Washington today are privately panicked while publicly pretending not to be panicked as they watch control of the Virginia House hang in the balance while they await the final count of votes in 4 districts that could flip control of the House to Democrats. And that is Paul Ryan's exact nightmare scenario 1 year from now with the United States House of Representatives. The message to Washington Republicans last night is that they are on their way to a restoration of the Nancy Pelosi speakership, or desperately clinging to an even thinner majority than they have now. Maybe a majority of just 1 or 2 seats in the House when the dust clears next year. Republican strategist Mike Murphy said today, the canary in the coal mine didn't just pass out, its head exploded. And its head exploded because of the head exploder-in-chief, Donald Trump. This election was a direct and very personal rebuke of Donald Trump. And of course, Donald Trump tried to pretend the opposite, tweeting that Ed Gillespie lost because, quote, he did not embrace me or what I stand for. Did not embrace me. Okay. Well, President Trump sure embraced him.
Like me, Ed is tough on crime and on the border. Ed will protect your family from crime, drugs, and violence, something Northam will never do. And Ed loves the vets, loves the military, and loves your Second Amendment. With your help, Ed Gillespie will help make America great again. A phrase that I like a lot. Vote for Ed Gillespie.
Like me, Ed is tough on crime and on the border. Like me. Those are the worst 2 words Donald Trump could have said about Ed Gillespie. Like me. And on Sunday, just 2 days before the Trump Republican wipeout at the polls, Steve Bannon was telling anyone who still listens to him just how much Ed Gillespie really embraced Donald Trump and how smart Ed Gillespie was to embrace Donald Trump.
He's really embraced the Trump agenda. And here in the last 4 weeks, and the Washington Post is reporting tonight, he may be up 1 or 2 points. If you look in Virginia, you see the grassroots are fired up. They're coming out now to embrace the Trump agenda. And, you know, as Gillespie has now articulated it, if the grassroots show up, we win.
Yeah, the grassroots showed up. You lost. Donald Trump lost, and Steve Bannon lost, and Steve Bannon proved to anyone in Republican politics who still wasn't sure what a complete and total loser Steve Bannon really is, that that's all he knows how to do. Exit polls show that Virginia voters rejected the Trump-Bannon poison. 57% of Virginia voters said they disapprove of the way the president is handling his job, with 47% disapproving strongly. Only 17% of voters said the reason they cast a ballot was to support Trump. Twice as many, 34%, they turned out specifically to oppose Donald Trump. President Trump's efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act also played a role in Ed Gillespie's defeat. Nearly 40% of voters said that health care was the most important issue for them, and those voters broke for Democrat candidate Ralph Northam by a 3-1 margin over Ed Gillespie. Today, Virginia Republican Congressman Scott Taylor from Virginia Beach blamed Donald Trump.
I think it was a referendum one, and the division and the divisive rhetoric that's in the country right now. I think it's important for Republicans to self-reflect all the way, starting from the top, all the way down. I do think it was a referendum on the national policies.
Was it a referendum on Donald Trump?
I do believe so.
A CNN poll shows how bad things look for Republicans in next year's congressional elections. 51% of Americans say it's bad for the country that Republicans currently control Congress. 38% say it's good. When asked which party they would choose in a generic congressional race, Democrats are preferred 50% to 38% over Republicans. Now, I'm about to show you what Speaker of the House Paul Ryan had to say today, but remember, before you watch it, he is a politician. And remember that Paul Ryan had exactly one job in his public comments today: to try to prevent the outbreak of public panic among professional Republicans. Paul Ryan knows that there's a wave out there. Paul Ryan knows that the wave is headed for him, and that the wave can wipe out not just his speakership, but it can actually knock him out of his congressional seat. He would not be the first Speaker of the House who lost his own re-election in his home district in a wave election. And the last time that happened, no one even saw that wave coming. That last time in 1994, when the Democratic Speaker of the House, Tom Foley, was defeated in his own re-election campaign in his home district, and the Democrats lost the House of Representatives for the first time in 40 years. It was the most shocking wave election of my lifetime, or Paul Ryan's lifetime, and no one saw it coming. Not one person, not one pundit predicted that the Republicans were going to win the House of Representatives for the first time in 40 years, and that they were going to win back the Senate at the very same time. No one predicted any of that, but here we are a year out, and Paul Ryan is looking over his shoulder, and he can see the wave coming very clearly because the polls are telling him it's coming, and the voters last night told him the wave is coming. And now listen to Paul Ryan trying to convince Fox News Radio and the Republican members of the House of Representatives that there's nothing to worry about, because we're with Trump.
Do you have to make a choice as Republicans? Either you're going to side with President Bush and his policies, 43, of more free trade and maybe some type of immigration compromise, or do you have to go with Donald Trump? Is it going to be a choice for Republicans, Bush or Trump?
We already made that choice. We're with Trump. We already made that choice. That's a choice we made at the beginning of the year. That's a choice we made during the campaign, which is we merged our agendas.
We're with Trump. That used to get you into some sleazy nightclubs in New York if it was at least half true. But we're with Trump. If you were with Trump last night, you don't have a job. You don't have an elective office job anymore. Paul Ryan's Republican House members know better. None of them are going to risk their careers for Donald Trump. It's every man and woman for themselves in the Republican House of Representatives now, and they know it. And some will be best served in their reelection campaigns by sticking close to Donald Trump. But the others who can only get reelected by rejecting Trump will reject Trump. And the ones who aren't sure which way to go, watch them. Republican House members who have some doubt about whether to stick with Trump or strike out on their own and convince their constituents they're not Trump puppets. Watch them, because if there's any doubt at all with those members after last night, which way do you think they're going to go? If there's any doubt at all, the only safe direction for Republican House members is as far away from Donald Trump as they can get, which puts the Trump-Ryan-McConnell tax cuts bill in even more danger than it was before last night. We're with Trump. Yeah. Sure, you're with Trump. Until you're not. Joining us now, John Heilman, National Affairs Analyst for NBC News and MSNBC. Also with us, David Frum, Senior Editor for The Atlantic, and Stuart Stevens, columnist for The Daily Beast, Republican strategist and senior strategist for Mitt Romney's 2012 presidential run. And Stuart, I'm going to go to you as the senior Republican strategist here. You're a Republican strategist looking to 2018. You wake up this morning and you think what?
Well, listen, I think some interesting stuff happened last night that kind of hadn't talked about enough. I'm a little conflicted here because I love Ed Gillespie like a brother, and I just think the campaign didn't really give him a chance to show who he really is, which happens more often than not in campaigns. But remarkably, the lieutenant governor and the attorney general, who didn't embrace this sort of cultural war on the Republican side, the top of the ticket did, overperformed. He had a very unusual situation where the female lieutenant governor actually led the ticket and got more votes than the top of the ticket. I think there's probably a message in that. They still lost, but it's still, they did a lot better. Where there was a drop-off on the Democratic side between the governor and lieutenant governor. There was an increase on the Republican side and in the attorney general's race. So I think just if you just look at it in a poli-sci sense, it was a little test in less divisive, less cultural war message did better last night.
And John Heilemann, you have it. It's right there. But of course, Republicans are going to try to deny it as much as they can publicly.
It's overwhelming, and I mean, you know, we've been talking about it all day on every show. You know, you think it's not just Virginia; it's every place, just across the
New Jersey. It's the ballot measures in Maine and
Maine, all the way stretching all the way to the West Coast in Washington State. You know, it's a wave, and you know, Stewart is. Close to Haley Barbour, who's one of my favorite aphorism spinners in the Republican Party. Haley likes to say, in politics, good gets better and bad gets worse. Last night was pretty bad. And the momentum now coming out of this, you got a couple of very concrete things that are going to happen. A lot of Republicans in the House of Representatives right now, there's at least a couple dozen that I know of who are thinking about retiring before last night. A lot of those people are, two of them announced last night that they're retiring. There will be more. Those retirements will open up seats. The Democrats will very much be in play. You're also going to have the Democratic Party now. Tom Perez was on the hook here. You know, this was the first big test for the new DNC, for the new organizing model, for investing in these down ticket races. Big, huge win for him that's going to reinforce money that's going to flow into the Democratic Party, candidate recruitment that's going to get better for the Democrats, who are going to find better people because they think it's possible to win these races. Good gets better, bad gets worse. And I think, you know, Paul Ryan, that was one of the most unconvincing things I've ever heard a politician say in my recent memory. I think that any Republican right now who doesn't recognize that they are on the wrong side of momentum, and that to the extent that Donald Trump is anything, he's a giant albatross around the party's neck right now. It's not anything, nothing's guaranteed in politics, but man, there's no doubt which party's hand you would rather play heading into the elections in 2018.
David Frum, your reading of the election results last night.
Well, I think, Lawrence, your reading of the intensity is prophetic. It's true. It's right. But there's more to the story. One risks underestimating how intense the struggle for power is going to be. And I think that there are people who woke up in the Trump White House this morning and said, we have to get more serious about voter suppression. Probably we can't win this thing in a fair fight, but that doesn't mean we're going to be content to lose. One of the things that was a background fact in the result in Virginia was that felons had regained the right to vote in Virginia. That was the top item on Rush Limbaugh's monologue today, that because people who had been pardoned from their crimes were voting, that the result was somehow illegitimate. You're going to hear a lot about that. And it is very hard. I know this world well. One of the things that is a deep conviction of the conservative world is they speak for the people. When they get evidence of that they don't respond to that by confessing it. They respond to it by redefining who the people are. And one of the big themes of the year ahead is going to be a redefinition of who does and who doesn't belong to the American people.
Let's take a look at the NBC exit poll of Virginia by party ID. And you had Democrat on the turnout was 41% Democrat. It was 30% Republican, independent, 28%. And Stewart, does that tell us something about the energy in the parties?
Sure. There's more energy on the Democratic side than the Republican side. There's one other thing that happened last night that I think we ought to take a look at, and that is that women did very well. Like in Pennsylvania, there are a bunch of judicial races, and in every race, a woman won the race. Even the Republican district attorney candidate who lost in Philadelphia did better, I think, by 2.5 times than the last time a male ran. I think there's something to this, that there's a energy with women. I'm not sure if it's just a result of a reaction to Donald Trump presidency, or if it's part of maybe this sort of awakening of the Me Too movement. But I think it bodes very well for women in 2018.
We're going to talk more about that actually in the next segment. But listen to what the Washington Post said today about the 2018 outlook for Republicans. All told, Republicans can only afford to lose 23 seats in the House next year and retain the majority. But Democrats already have their eyes on dozens of suburban GOP seats that are competitive in presidential or other statewide races. It just so happens that 23 Republicans, like Comstock, sits in seats that Hillary Clinton defeated Trump in last year, as well as another 13 that previously backed Barack Obama in his presidential races. And John Heilman, those are exactly the districts you target if you're the Democrats and you're trying to take control.
Right, and you look at Virginia as a very good example of this. What we saw was Ed Gillespie trying to basically repeat Trump-level numbers in the South and the West and the rural parts of Virginia. He basically did that, but he just got swamped in the Northern Virginia suburbs. And the best example of that has been discussed by some is Loudoun County, which is a collar county, an exurban county in Northern Virginia that he won 3 years ago. Ed Gillespie won when he ran for the Senate 3 years ago, and he got beat by double digits yesterday. You look at the overall raw vote up, I believe, 13% in Virginia over the last midterm election, their last off-year election in 2013. You're looking right at Northern Virginia, and there are districts just like that in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, across the industrial Midwest, in the Mountain West, all over the place. More even than the number that the Washington Post is pointing to there. There's got to be like 50 or 60 of those districts around that are going to be prime battlegrounds. And again, where Democrats not remotely guaranteed to win, but they are now absolutely in the strike zone for Democrats, again, with this Trump drag on the Republican ticket.
I was watching Steve Kornacki yesterday before the state was called, before Virginia was called, and when he pointed to what was happening in Loudoun County, he was almost jumping up and down because, as you mentioned, it was stunning to him, and I think Steve knew. He told me later that he knew as soon as he saw that this was over. He didn't have to wait for the official call. We're going to have to break it there. Stuart Stevens and John Heilman, thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. David, please stick around. Coming up, women were a big part, as Stuart said, a big part of the wins last night for Democrats. You will meet one of them, Ashley Bennett. She challenged a local Republican for his seat after he mocked the Women's March. Ashley Bennett went after that seat and took it away from him to punish him for mocking the biggest inauguration protest in history.
For the very first time, meet the animals behind the first Christmas.
Biggity bow! That can't be right.
On November 17th,
King Herod is up to something. Find this child. You're gonna have to get past me first. Looks like it's up to me. No, too big, too big.
To save Christmas.
Follow my lead. What is taking him so long? Dave?
Right here on your butt.
It's going to take a miracle.
Wait a second, are they eating chicken? Ladies, roll!
The Star, the story of the first Christmas, rated PG.
Pack for any occasion with Joseph A. Bank's Veterans Day sale and save up to 60% store-wide. All executive suits, just $199. All best-selling Traveler dress shirts, $39. And all Traveler sport shirts and cotton sweaters, 2 for $69. The Veterans Day sale, only at Joseph A. Bank.
When you have a cold, stuff happens. Shut down cold symptoms fast with maximum strength Alka-Seltzer Plus liquid gels.
I can't wait for her to have that college experience that I had. The classes, the friends, the independence. And since we've planned for it, that student debt is the one experience I'm glad she'll miss. When you have the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. Ameriprise.
I won this 55-inch TV for less than $30 on DealDash.com.
I got this $1,200 computer for $100.71.
These aren't actors, they're real people who got real savings at DealDash.com, the fair and honest bidding site. At DealDash.com, you can save up to 99%, but hurry, everything must go.
And shipping is always free.
Visit DealDash.com and start bidding today.
So you like to cook. And you're curious about meal kits. But don't know where to start. All you have to do is... Oh, you're already done. With Home Chef, get fresh ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes delivered weekly for delicious meals in about 30 minutes. Visit homechef.com for $30 off your first order.
last night we saw was enough. Enough.
But now it's real.
Right? And decent people. This was a mix of Democrats and independents and Republicans. It was a coalition of the decent in this country that rose up yesterday.
Women have been leading that coalition of the decent since the day after the inauguration, when the Women's March became the largest inauguration protest in history, and it was the first worldwide inauguration protest in history. Here is what women were rising up against yesterday: a first-year president with the worst disapproval rating in the history of polling. The disapproval he began earning with women before he was president.
When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the
55% of women in New Jersey voted for Democrat Phil Murphy, who was running against Chris Christie's lieutenant governor, a woman, Kim Giordano. In Virginia, the Virginia governor's race, Democrat Ralph Northam won the women's vote 61 to 39. That's a 22-point spread, better than Hillary Clinton's win with women voters in Virginia in 2016, better than Senator Mark Warner's win in 2014, Terry McAuliffe's gubernatorial win in 2013, and even better than President Obama's win in 2012. Joining us now, Maria Teresa Kumar, the president and CEO of Voto Latino and an MSNBC contributor, and Neera Tanden, president of the Center for American Progress. And Neera, you look at these numbers tonight, and you see this, that women simply decided this was their night. They were going to take over these races as voters.
You know, women really turned out. There are a lot of women candidates who ran, and there are a lot of women candidates who won. But it was really fueled by a diverse coalition: white, college-educated women, women of color, women of all stripes really decided enough was enough. They believed enough was enough at the beginning of this administration with the Women's March, and have thought enough is enough throughout this. I would also say that health care turned out to be the decisive issue in Virginia. Women have led the resistance to the health care bill and have been the ones making calls to Congress, fighting members of Congress on it. Ralph Northam was a pediatrician, but also ran on a Medicaid expansion. So I think it's both the issues and the fact that, women were basically saying Donald Trump is as a threat to our children and to our future, and we're going to do everything we can to stop him.
I'm just going to quickly recite a small sample of women election winners last night. Jenny Durkham won the race for mayor in Seattle. She will become the city's first woman mayor in 89 years. She'll also be the city's first openly lesbian mayor. Vi Lyles, the first African-American woman mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina. Elizabeth Guzman, first Latina, and Haya Ilaya, the first Latinas to become Virginia delegates. They both beat out incumbent Republican white men, replacing them. Kathy Tran, Asian-American woman delegate in Virginia, beating a Republican woman for an open seat. Democrat Joyce Craig became the first woman mayor of Manchester, New Hampshire. That's New Hampshire's largest city. And Maria Teresa, as you know, that's the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. We also had, for the very first time, we had a Sudanese refugee elected to a local city council. The list goes on, but I thought what was most telling yesterday of the results was that, one, we finally have a diversified demographic of America, really representing the map of what America looks like. And people came out bold, and they came out and they voted. Others put themselves out there. But I also think that what is interesting, and this is where the Republicans should really, be concerned, is that we saw a surge of women from the suburbs come in under the fold of the Democratic Party. That's been rare. The soccer mom has usually historically been more independent, more Republican. That wasn't the case last night. This is not just a wave. This is a tsunami heading their way, and they have to change course.
Neera, what can the Republicans do in the face of this? This seems like a very personal, very energetic rejection of Donald Trump.
Well, I think the first thing they could do is stop, basically joining him at the hip. I mean, remember, Chris Gillespie ran a very divisive, very racialized campaign. And what I was really heartened by, and Maria raises this, is that there was a surge of Latino votes in response to the, MS-13 ads, the sort of anti-immigrant ads that we saw from Ed Gillespie, who just a few years ago said he was for immigration reform. And so I think he made himself, basically Trumpian politics was on the ballot and it lost. And the first thing Republicans can do is to distance themselves from Donald Trump's agenda and Donald Trump himself. And the fact that Paul Ryan today is joining himself even more closely. If I were a Republican from the suburbs who is facing the wrath of women voters in 2018, I would say that speaker is not representing me.
And
right.
Maria Teresa, go ahead.
So one of the things that Neera touched upon, and I think is very true, is that we saw a 113% increase by the Latino vote from the 2013 election this past midterm. And all that tells me is that, Lawrence, this for them is personal. They are basically putting a stake in the sand saying, stop going after our families. You're being unfair. You're being racist. And you're actually jeopardizing our safety in our communities. So we're going to go out and vote. And I can share with you that I've been crisscrossing the country. I've clocked in 147,000 miles this year. It's been bananas, but I can tell you that in those conversations, whether it's Omaha, Nebraska, whether it's Midland in California, every single Latino community is having the same conversation. How do we stop this?
Maria Teresa Kumar and Neera Tanden, thank you both for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Coming up, we will be joined by Ashley Bennett. She's a now politician who was not a politician, who was offended by a New Jersey Republican who insulted the Women's March. Ashley Bennett took that personally and decided to run against that politician. And now that politician's out of a job, and Ashley Bennett has his job. She will join us next.
When you look for things, when you search the polished showrooms, you are looking for me. Beyond status and capability, you are looking for me. And when you dream, you unknowingly dream of me. I am the end of your search. I am the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, the first sport utility vehicle created by Alfa Romeo.
Pack for any occasion with Joseph A. Banks Veterans Day sale and save up to 60% store-wide. All executive suits, just $199. All best-selling Traveler dress shirts, $39. And all Traveler sport shirts and cotton sweaters, 2 for $69. The Veterans Day sale, only at Joseph A. Bank.
Here's to the heroes, America's small business owners. And here's to the heroes behind the heroes who use their expertise to keep those businesses covered. And here's to the heroes behind the heroes behind the heroes who brought us delicious Gyros. Actually, the Gyro hero owns Vero's Gyros, so he should have been with those first heroes. That's better. So to recap, small business owners are heroes, and our heroes help heroes be heroes when they're not eating Gyros delivered by, you know what I mean.
When it comes to heartburn, trust the brand doctors trust for themselves. Nexium 24-Hour is the #1 choice of doctors and pharmacists for their own frequent heartburn and all-day, all-night protection. When it comes to frequent heartburn, trust Nexium 24-Hour.
To eat. I love hanging out with my friends. I have a great fit with my dentures. I love kiwis. I've always had that issue with the seeds getting under my denture. Super Polygrip Free, it creates a seal of the dentures in my mouth.
Even well-fitting dentures let in food particles. Just a few dabs of Super Polygrip Free is clinically proven to seal out more food particles, so you're more comfortable and confident while you eat.
Super Polygrip Free made eating the kiwi an enjoyable experience.
Try Super Polygrip Free.
New from Fabletics. Our lightest leggings ever. Ultra breathable, extra comfortable, always flattering. With 3-panel compression for perfect fit and feel. You've got this. Now go get it. Get 2 pairs of our lightest leggings ever for just $24, only at Fabletics.com.
Here's an important message from the Pain Relief Hotline. Are you in pain? Does it hurt to walk, to bend over, or to even get in and out of your car? If you're in pain and on Medicare, or even if you have private insurance, call the Pain Relief Hotline right now. Our friendly, knowledgeable consultants can show you how your Medicare or private insurance can get you pain-relieving products at little or no cost to you. Call us right now. No one should have to live in pain. At the Pain Relief Hotline, we're ready to help. Call the Pain Relief Hotline right now.
It's time to start your weekend early with the return of Thursday Night Football on NBC. So whether it's a boys' night out in Dallas or a dance party in Pittsburgh, get it, AB. Start your weekend early with Thursday Night Football, NBC and NFL Network.
Last night, there were some amazing movies written in the election results, movies that would be hard to believe until last night. Ashley Bennett wrote one of those movies for herself, and she will join us later to tell that story. In Virginia, voters chose Danica Roem, their first transgender state legislator, over a Republican who had been calling himself the state's chief homophobe. Now, that was a movie pitch that would be hard to believe, that's just too perfect before last night. Danica Roem then joined us on this program at this hour last night, and she refused to say a negative word about her opponent.
Starting next year, Delegate Marshall will be one of my constituents, and I'm not going to attack my own constituents. I think if there's any lesson that comes out of the race this year, it's that attacking your constituents, singling them out, stigmatizing them, and trying to just make people feel bad about themselves. That's not our Virginia.
In another only in the movies outcome, Virginia voters chose Chris Hurst, a former local TV news anchor who quit his job and became a gun safety advocate after his girlfriend, Allison Parker, was shot and killed on live television as she was doing a report. Last night, he won a seat in the House of Delegates over an opponent who had an A rating from the National Rifle Association. Here's what he said today.
I wish that I was still with Allison, was still a journalist working at the television station that we worked at together, but that wasn't the plan that God had intended for me and for her, and so I thought about trying to forge a new path and create a new plan.
In Helena, Montana, voters elected a refugee from Liberia, Democrat Wilmot Collins, as their first African-American mayor. In New Jersey, voters replaced Republican freeholder John Carman, who got national attention in January when he posted this on Facebook. Will the women's protest be over in time for them to cook dinner? John Carman then said this when asked to apologize.
Women who are sure of themselves, they didn't get offended by this. If it hurts your feelings, it wasn't intent. It wasn't posted with any mouth. It was an issue.
Excuse me, everyone went down. Okay, we're leaving.
Ashley Bennett was one of the women who walked out of that meeting in protest. She decided that she was going to run against John Carman for Atlantic County freeholder, and last night she beat him. Ashley Bennett drove Republican John Carman out of office because he insulted her and the millions of Americans who joined the Women's March all over the country. And joining us now for an exclusive interview is Ashley Bennett. Ashley, tell us about that moment when you decided to do this.
Hi, Lawrence. Thank you so much for having me. Well, that moment was just a moment of pure shock. I just couldn't believe that in 2017, we were actually seeing this. And I went to the freeholder meeting after writing him a letter. I didn't get a response. And I waited to see what kind of a response he was going to give. And as you just showed in the clip, that was the response. And I took off of work. I used vacation time to go to that meeting, and I felt like it was a waste. And so I walked out. And for all the people who felt like their voice wasn't heard, I said, I'll run and I'll be your voice.
Did you say it that day, Ashley? Did you say it walking out of that meeting, I will run?
I went home and I said to my family how upset I was, and they said, "Why don't you run?" And I said, "Why? Well, I will run."
And how did you to do that?
Sure. It was not an easy balance by any stretch, but I had a lot of support. I had support from friends and family members and my coworkers.